Yo, what up, YouTube? Alone So Cute, and I'm gonna air some grievances here for Festivus here before the holidays, and I might do a couple of these videos. First up, I wanted to talk about immigration real quick and the immigration debate. Why I thought it was really frustrating this year, and why both parties I think are wrong about immigration, and so the debate itself was really frustrating because of Donald Trump and his fucking bombastic way of speaking that the whole conversation about immigration got turned into a racial thing, and it got like you couldn't be against immigration or else you're a racist. And that's how they framed the election, and I think that's a big part of what got Donald Trump elected, is this framing something as a racial issue that's not really a racial issue. It's a policy issue. Immigration, every country in the world has a policy on immigration. So that's where Republicans sort of end up coming out looking like the ones who are making more sense on the issue compared to Democrats, who I actually agree with more. I'm a open borders person, but I have a logical foundation for why I'm open borders, whereas Democrats don't really seem to make that argument. They don't make a principled argument, they make an emotional argument, and everything they say, it usually comes down to these fucking platitudes of like, we're a nation of immigrants and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you need to bring more to the table than that. And I think part of the problem is that what makes immigration a good thing is capitalism. It's free exchange. It's free. It's a free association. It's freedom to work with who you want to work. It's capitalism in action, and it's the same thing. That the same reason why immigration is good is the same reason why outsourcing is good, because it's a voluntary interaction where everybody is benefiting from the exchange. But Democrats have a hard time promoting capitalism and accepting capitalism and free markets. And here's another problem with the Democratic reasoning is that they're also the guys pushing for $15 minimum wage. And they're also the guys who say, if you get rid of immigrants, who's going to pick your food? Well, somebody getting paid $15 an hour is going to get paid your food. And so here's part of the thing too, and this is an argument that you hear from Donald Trump's and Bernie Sanders's and all these people who say immigration brings down wages for domestic workers. And there's some truth to that, but what they leave out of that argument is it also brings down food prices for those same workers. So yeah, maybe if you have a $15 minimum wage, you have more dollars in your pocket, but how much food are those dollars going to buy when the guy picking your food is also getting $15 an hour? It's going to raise the prices of everything. So it's they leave that part of the issue out, is you have a higher standard of living. Even though you're not getting paid as much, you're able to get more food for your buck. And obviously people coming here, and it's actually, this is one of those arguments for against the minimum wage, because people say, well, you can't you can't live on the minimum wage, but obviously people come from Mexico and then they send money back, and they're working under the table. So how much fucking money are they making that they're able to live and send money back? So there's some inconsistencies to their argument. And where the Republicans start to make sense is you can't have totally open borders and have a welfare state. And the problem is a lot of the Republicans want to keep the welfare stuff. And that's what we should be targeting, not immigrants. We should be getting rid of the state, so that way people we're incentivizing the right people to come here. And that's something that Democrats are ignoring in this issue, is the idea of setting a precedent and what kind of incentive that creates for people. When you give amnesty to people who come illegally, that encourages more people to come illegally. And when you give them free education and free healthcare and all this stuff, it encourages people to come for those benefits. But if you get rid of that and the incentive becomes the opportunity that's here, not the opportunity for government benefits, but the opportunity for work and freedom and property, when those opportunities are present, it provides an incentive for a different group of people. And that's actually why America does a better job of assimilating immigrants than other countries. And that's a big part of the argument that the people on the right, or at least the Trumpists, make, is they point to Europe. And Europe is in the middle of a migration crisis. And that's what the Democrats have been ignoring this whole time, is the fact that there is a migration crisis in Europe. But the problem is Republicans are just carrying that over to the U.S. as if we're the same thing as Europe. But we're not the same thing as Europe. We're much better than Europe. And we have liberty here, and that's how come we get better immigrants who come here. And that's why they assimilate better, because we have a better culture. And American culture, it pulls people in for the freedom. So the problem is Democrats are trying to turn us into Europe. They're trying to turn us into some bland, boring socialist European country where people don't have guns and they don't have freedom. And that's a problem in Europe. So you see how both sides are wrong on this, because Republicans are saying, well, look what's happening in Europe, and you have to look at that and see that there's some serious problems with people not assimilating, especially in the Muslim community. And so that's how come you see all this fear of Muslims. But meanwhile, in America, American Muslims do a much better job of assimilating. And I believe they would do even a better job, and all cultures who come here would do a better job if there was a different incentive for people to come here. Instead of trying to play the system and benefit from the system, if people just had the opportunities available to them in the United States, and that's what brought them here. And that's a big reason of what propels people to come here. So again, that's how come America assimilates better. So Republicans make the mistake of thinking that America's going to turn into Europe just because of immigration. America's going to turn into Europe because of our welfare policies, not because of our immigration policies. And people say, well, they take out so many dollars in welfare and stuff. And look, you can't blame the immigrants for the government taxing you and giving your money away. You need to blame the government for that, and you need to stop them from doing it. And then it creates a better environment for everybody. But you can't just stop immigration and keep the welfare, because that creates lazy Americans. It messes with our labor market, and then and then you can't have it like just deny it to the immigrants either, because then you're going to have Americans who are lazy, and it's just going to create the extra demand for under-the-table work. And labor's just one of those things, man. It's like drugs or anything else, you know. The demand is always going to be there. And if there's that demand for labor, people are going to supply it. So trying to combat it with police action is just counterproductive. What we need to do is create a better environment to promote assimilation. And I think Republicans dropped the ball on this. I think they should be reaching out to immigrants, because those are the people who are going to buy into the American dream more than Americans who are going down this crazy land path to democratic socialism and trying to turn America into Europe. We don't want America to be Europe. So that's how come the Republicans end up coming out sounding like they make more sense, because they understand you can't have open borders and a runaway welfare state. And when you give up, you know, your principles in exchange for this idea of multiculturalism and diversity for the sake of diversity, then social structures start to fall apart, and you get what's going on in Europe. And what's going on in Europe is frightening. So it's easy to see how people are making that jump. But America isn't the same as Europe, and we should be working to reestablish ourselves for what makes America great, instead of going down that path towards European-style social democracies and welfare states, because that's just going to keep the incentive there. Instead of just trying to fight immigration, we should accept it for what it is. It's a natural right. You know, just like freedom of association is a natural right. If you know somebody in another country who wants to work for you, and you can arrange a contract between the two of you, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do that. That's your natural right as a human. So governments standing in the way of that I have a problem with. But Democrats they're not approaching it from a fundamental position of liberty or self-ownership or freedom of association. It's hard to even get where they're grounding their belief in. And a lot of these guys are grounding it in race, which is just mind-boggling. And this is mostly coming from like the Chicano people who are saying, oh, well, this used to be Mexico. Well, so fucking what, man? I said this in another video. I can't just go to Mexico and not speak Spanish and not have gone through immigration and expect them to have leniency on me. It's just, I would hope they would. And in the future, I think that's what it'll be. I don't think we're going to have borders the same way we think of them now in the future. But in order to get that place, we have to acknowledge that this is about freedom, and this is about freedom of association, and it's about capitalism. And the same principle that makes immigration good is the same principle that makes outsourcing good. So both parties are really off the base on this. They want protectionism. They want unions and high minimum wages and stuff. And they're just ignoring the function that the market plays in all of this. So that's just one of my big grievances from this election, is that the debate of immigration just got lost in the weeds over allegations of racism and all this stuff, but the issue itself didn't even hardly get discussed. And we should be talking about how immigration is a good thing, why it's a good thing, and why it's different in America from other countries, and look at what makes America better. And it's our culture that makes the immigrants who come here. It attracts better quality immigrants who are willing to assimilate and who desire to prosper in the environment that America offers. So that's what we need to foster, is a better environment for businesses to grow, and then it doesn't matter where people come from. But the way it is with a welfare state, can we really accommodate people coming from all over the world? And that's one of the arguments people on the Republicans are making is, well, you know, if there's 800 million people in India who would rather live in the U.S., do we just let them all in? Or, you know, how do you do it? It's like, if somebody brings their family along, do you not send them back just because you don't want to be mean to them? There's not a lot of I haven't heard a lot of detail into where Democrats draw the line or where their philosophical principle comes from in this issue. So it's obviously not from the capitalist free association perspective, and that's what I would like to see. And I wish Republicans would take that up. I wish they would reach out more to immigrants, because I think that's the future of Republicanism. And maybe not, I don't mean the party of Republicanism, but I mean this country. The future is going to be people who value liberty, and it might have to be people who come from far away to value our liberty, because people born here are trying to give it away, especially the Democrats. But anyway, that's just one of my grievances. Tell me what you think. Like, subscribe. Peace and love, gente. Keep an eye out for the next one. And happy holidays. Happy Festivus. Merry Christmas.